What is going on, everybody? So today we're going to talk about capital gains. We're going to talk about Massachusetts and what the Massachusetts governor said and what does this mean for you and your investments, okay? We have a new Massachusetts governor. Let's see what she said. She talked about capital gains. After that, she talked about like housing, affordability, developers. So the scoop is Massachusetts has become an outliner, right? And what this means is that Massachusetts, people are flowing out of Massachusetts, especially college students, right? If you have a good degree, you come to Massachusetts to study and then you cannot afford to live here or buy a home straight out of college. Of course, you're not going to stay here. You're gonna move out to a cheaper state, especially if your degree holds value in California more than Massachusetts. Another thing that she mentioned is affordable housing, right? Houses are so expensive. So she said that she wants to give some initiative to builders and developers to build more homes because the inventory is so low. This is something we've been talking about a lot in real estate. There is not too much inventory. Of course, this leads to higher prices because there's few homes on the market and a lot of buyers going after these homes, especially at the price range around $499 to like, let's say $599. Everybody tries to get into these homes, pushing the prices higher and higher, even in the suburbs, even in Norwood, even in Dedham, even all the way out to Canton, Foxborough. There's not enough homes on the market, so that's why she wants to help with zoning. She wants to help with permits. And this is huge. If you're a developer right now and you're hearing this, I mean, in my opinion, I'll be all over that. I will be all over situations where you can build a lot of units next to each other and a little bit high end because that's what sells now, right? Buy a lot of land. Like the state is willing to support you. There is nothing that can stop you if the state comes out and says, let's support you. Let's make sure we get you the permits. Let's make sure we get you the zoning. So let's see what she said and then let's commentate it.
I really enjoy this. It's a tremendous honor and privilege to be governor and work with a terrific team. My first 100 days were really full, building an incredibly strong cabinet of super talented people who are out there looking to get after it, looking to partner with others inside and importantly outside of government, and really be on the ground listening to residents, to businesses, to employers, and being responsive to their needs. There are real challenges in our state, and top of the list is probably housing right now, and that's why I've set out to create a new housing agency, a new housing secretariat, a person who's going to drive a team that is about driving housing production across the state.
Very good.
We focused hard early on in our budget proposal to make investments in workforce development, in education, and transportation.
Wow.
We also put forward a tax proposal. We need tax relief in the state. It's really, really important that,
of course, you get tax
we
relief.
get this tax relief
You
package
squeeze all the business owners.
passed. We want Massachusetts to become more affordable for people, and we want it to become a place where businesses and others are looking to stay and looking to grow. In order to have the number of housing units across this state that we need, and estimates that we're a couple 100,000 units short, I need to have a person who is running an executive office of housing and livable communities.
That's good. I mean, at least she assigns somebody,
working with localities, working with cities and towns, working with...
You see, that's important, right? Because saying it, and at least she's trying to create a department to run this, right? So that's important. Let's see how well they run it. Let's see how important it is. Let's give it a chance.
Developers, importantly, to do what is necessary to get housing development going across this state. We need to build places that are affordable for people, that are closer to public transit, that gives folks access to jobs and to health care and other essential...
I think it's so funny, right? Because she says closer to public transportation, she says closer to hospitals, universities. And you already know, no matter like who decides to build in places like that, right? You know that these places, they're going to be brand new constructions and they're going to go for crazy money, right? So the incentive is great, but you know that this is not going to be affordable housing, right? The only thing that might work, okay, and hear me out, is a condo conversion. Even in East Boston, since they're so close to like, downtown, condo conversions work, like it makes sense to buy a triple decker, turn into a condo, set up an association, and then everybody buys a separate floor, and then this way you have a condo, they own their own home, but they're in an association. I mean, this makes more sense, it's more affordable, maybe something like that would make more sense. But still, like this idea of going to a great location and then developing a brand new construction to make it affordable, I don't see it flying. Let's see.
Services, and this is going to be really important for us as a state.
Talking with Governor Maura Healey. Governor, if you could, then, in that same vein about housing, there's this whole issue of transfer taxes and individual communities asking for the right to charge more at the point of sale. I read that you're on board with this. I know it's individual communities, whether it's Martha Vineyard or Boston. Where are you on the whole idea of a transfer tax as the money goes towards affordable housing?
Well, what I've said on this is that when it comes to that issue, I'm going to respect the will of communities on this. Each community is unique and facing different needs. and I'll review anything that comes to my desk. But I think really what is at the center of this, though, and what I'm trying to focus on is that whether you're talking rents, whether you're talking the ability to make a down payment, whether you're looking at housing costs across the state, not just in the greater Boston area, people can't afford housing, and there simply isn't enough of it. So how do we?
So how is the transfer tax going to help you? These politicians have such an amazing way to answer a question and then not answer it. The guy's like, okay, what are you going to do with transfer tax? It's like down payments and rent. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep it? Are you going to, try to enforce it harder? She's like, oh, we're going to use this money to do rents and down payments. Well, what is your plan here? Let's start talking about down payment and affordable housing again,
And make possible the kind of housing development that we need all across the state. And, I've called on cities and towns and communities to address their zoning practices to make room for greater housing production, because at the end of the day, it comes down to whether or not people are going to be able to afford to stay here or whether they're going to go other places. I want people staying in Massachusetts. I want businesses staying in Massachusetts. And
lower their taxes there, create incentives for them to build, They didn't mention anything about rent control. They already know that this has no chance.
Going to do everything that we can from a regulatory permitting matter to look at what we can do to make sure that we're supporting the kind of economic growth that we need. Massachusetts, this is the thing. Massachusetts, we are a great state. We value education. We value people's access to health care. We look to protect the environment and address climate change. We protect democracy and voting and civil rights. These are things that are really important.
Again, what are you going to do with transfer tax? We value education. We value hospitals. We value civil rights. These things are, oh my God, man. Just answer the freaking question so we can move on.
And yet, we have a situation where other states are competing for business and making, the proposition that the cost of living is a little more affordable. And so, I just want Massachusetts to be able to compete and win.
How is Massachusetts going to compete and win if we get all snow like four times a year? You don't give any incentive to businesses, and then at the same time, you don't even make sure that the taxes are a little bit lower, right? No incentive to businesses. Listen, let me tell you something else too, okay? If you're a developer or a builder, you guys know the struggle. Depending on where you're trying to build, it's a whole different ball game, right? You get places that they have huge lands and they're not zoned to build. Makes no sense. It makes no sense. You go out there in Weymouth, you get like 2-3 acres and it's not a buildable lot. Well, do something about it, Honestly, bottom line is that if you want Massachusetts to compete, you're gonna compete with Florida and the nice weather. You're gonna compete with places like Texas. You're gonna compete with places like Vegas, right? Even up here in New Hampshire, you gotta be competitive in taxes. You gotta be competitive salaries, okay? Because the cost of living up here is so much more expensive. And then on top of that, you can not be pointing fingers. That's the thing. We're so involved in the healthcare system here, which is so expensive to run. I bet that's one of the issues as well. It's not like down in Florida where they don't really care. Like up here, we have good hospitals. Mass health pays for everything. So, but anyway, point being, if you want to be competitive, you got to make it attractive. For builders, for people with money, for people to invest and create opportunity.
First is the red tape issue. We have developers on this program, not just the big office towers, but people that do housing development who say there's just too much red tape in these local communities. There's stretch codes, for instance,
of course,
where communities can pile on even more regs. And
I
then
tell you,
there's
try
this
to build a
whole
home.
idea, and you've mentioned it, transit-oriented housing. We've talked to mayors who are pushing back. Scott Galvin in Woburn is an example. He says, look, we got to build affordable housing. I just don't need the state on my back telling me what to do. So could you respond to both of those?
Politics are funny, right? You run a city and then you run a state, right? You're talking about different levels of headache, okay? So, this lady just took office, I don't know, what is it, 100 days, right? Her name is Maura Healey. She's a woman, right? She's trying to enforce things and change things around. And then like a mayor comes out and says, oh, we're trying to do it, but the state doesn't help being on our back. Well, they're going to give you the funding. They're going to give you incentives. So, you don't want them to look at you closely, maybe, but, if you guys don't work together, there is no way to survive this.
And this is holding us back because the reality is, people are going to move to New Hampshire.
Of course.
They're going to move to the Carolinas, to Florida, to Texas, where they can afford to buy a house.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Or where they can afford rent. And, just think about this. This spring, we're going to see tens of thousands of students come through and graduate here in our great state. Again,
Do you know what else you're going to see this spring? People fleeing the state again because it's mismanaged, and at the same time you're competing with no tax, okay? That's what else you're going to see as well. But let's see what you have to say.
Massachusetts home to the greatest colleges and universities in the country. I want those students staying here. But if they can't afford a house, if they can't afford rent, if they can't afford a rent or house near the place where they want to work, that becomes a problem for us. And so, this is why I am leaning in hard with...
It's so funny, right? Because $100,000 in this state is nothing, okay? I mean, you can make $100,000, go and apply for a pre-approval. The $500,000 they're going to give you as a pre-approval is not going to do nothing, okay? Like $500,000, $600,000 is the rates. On top of everything else, they make your monthly expenses higher. But $100,000 out of college in this state means nothing. Of course, if they take their $100,000 and their Boston degree and they go all the way to Carolinas, first of all, they're going to have more buying power. Second of all, they're going to have a better quality of life, So it's a no-brainer. And I mean, in all reality, right? You know how they say don't blame the messenger? I mean, she's trying, okay? Like, I'm not bashing her too much. It's just like this state has changed so much, in many ways. In business friendliness, I'm not gonna tell you, but go on Masav and drive by and see what is going on there, It has become very hostile to business opportunities, to building, to zoning, permits. You pull a license, good luck. So all in all, this is a different day, but let's finish this video because we left halfway. So that's the idea. She's trying to help the businesses. She's trying to give some tax relief. She's trying to bring people and make people stay in Massachusetts. But at the same time, you see, because the weather is not helping, because she's a new person in office, she's having some pushback. The main thing here is, like she said, that she's going to help developers, she's going to help builders, she's going to try and create more growth in Massachusetts, get more cities approved for permits, get more cities approved to build. So this, all in all, is great news. If you're a developer, if you're a builder, focus your attention into the cities that are closer to Boston, and soon enough, probably we're going to have more support, in the city halls to get more permits, to get more zoning approval. So all in all, that was the video I had to say. It's a different day. I wear a different shirt, but I love you all. I'll catch you guys soon, and